You know what? It's generated some great cash flow for me. It's also increased quite significantly in value, about 50 grand on top of the sale price.
Fitness and entrepreneurship, I think they're intrinsically linked. I really do. I think fitter and health in mind and body means you can be a better operational entrepreneur. What are your thoughts?
1,000,000%. One of my fundamental rules, sweat every day, is the term I use to kind of get the brain in rhythm. I don't know how you feel when you train, but I'm just a lot more alert, switched on, feeling excited about opportunity. I'm quicker with making decisions.
So you started off in sports and then moved into business. How did property fit into your plan?
On my mind, it was like, how can I build a business that's profitable enough that I can take that money and put it into something that continues to grow for me? 5 years later and 5 tenants later, he was right. It was a big lesson for me because it allowed me to...
Building wealth through property isn't about chasing big deals and paydays. It's about owning assets that make money for you consistently. But figuring it all out on your own, that's where most people get stuck. That's why we created this Property Life membership. It's everything we wish we had when we started. Expert guidance, real-world case studies, and a private community of investors actually doing deals, not just talking about them. So you could spend years trying to piece it all together yourself, or you could plug into a system that's already working for our community. Check out our membership page at This Property Life. Everything you need to know is right there. Success is a team sport. Come join in. Hi, and welcome to This Property Life. I'm Nick Claydon, your host today, and today I am joined by Luke Turner, a entrepreneur and property investor. So really excited to have Luke on today and to talk about fitness and why it's so important for property investors and entrepreneurs. So welcome, Luke. Nice to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Nick. I appreciate it.
Fab. So maybe if we start, just give us a little bit of the intro into kind of, your experience today, what you've done, who you are, and the fitness side and how it links with your property investing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I guess I'll take you back to earlier on in my career, probably around when I was 17, 18, 10 years ago now. I was massively into becoming, the goal for me was to become a professional football player. So I played at Bromley Town Football Club, and the goal from there was to transition into the first team. And as do most young footballers' dreams who want to become pro and walk out at Wembley and lift up a trophy, unfortunately, that dream started to fade away. But actually, what Bromley gave me was an opportunity to have a bit of a plan B. So although I could see myself playing semi-professional football for years to come, I was also like, you know what, there's an opportunity to become qualified as a PT. So I actually went through all my qualifications with Bromley, got qualified, worked in a commercial gym. And shortly after that, a few years later, I wasn't too happy there. I was doing well with clients, but the culture and just the vibe of the gym, I didn't want my life to be stuck in a commercial gym. There was one person who was there for like 15 years. I was like, that's not going to be me. And interestingly, an opportunity came up where my dad said, there's a cricket club down the road that you used to play at. There's a small 1,000 square foot space in there. You could open a gym. So that's what I did. I transitioned all my clients over to the commercial space. And from there, started to grow a one-to-one business, which then moved into group PT and then moved into like classes, boot camps, all that kind of stuff. And falling by the wayside was the football. I went all in on the fitness side of things, grew it from there. And then just before COVID, actually, I started to see some real traction with the business and built up enough money to be able to put a deposit on my first buy-to-let property. So that was a studio, which literally, funny enough, I've just finished converting into a 1-bedroom and it's going on the market later on today. So we can talk about that a bit later on, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
But from there, decided to go all in after COVID-19 when the lockdowns were stopped and opened up the second location, which was a space in Surrey, Causden, if people know it. And from there, from it being a one-man band to having 20 clients to building over 250 clients across 2 locations now. So we have a gym that we opened last year in Purley, where we specialize in small group personal training. A lot of our clients that we work with are professionals working in the city, business owners, investors, which was then why I came to the Landlord Investment Show, Nick, and I met you there. And we obviously had a great conversation about all things business and how health kind of links in with that. But I've had my own struggles with just being burnt out, burning the candle at both ends and neglecting my fitness. And a lot of people look at fitness professionals and go, it must be easy, you work in a gym. But it really isn't that way. It really isn't that way. So it's usually like a builder. A builder has the worst house, but everyone else's looks great because there's the last house to be finished. It's kind of like that in the fitness industry. So that's a little bit of a backstory. Built a decent sized portfolio now, up to 4 investment properties and 2 successful businesses in Surrey.
Before we jump in, let's tackle one of the biggest hurdles for property investors: finding the best buy-to-let locations for top returns. Over the years, we've helped countless individuals pinpoint the most profitable locations and maximize their rental income. To make it easier for you, we've put together a free guide to buy-to-let hotspots for 2025, designed specifically for you to understand the market, stay ahead of the trends, and it even includes a list of our top 10 locations in the UK. Get it now for free by clicking the link in the description below and start building your property portfolio today.
Amazing. So you got your two gyms and personal
Mhm.
training studio, which is amazing. And the business is that's your two fit business. Yeah.
T2 Fit, yeah. So we specialize in small group personal training. So it's a very different way for people to work with a coach. We saw that there was a big gap between people who could afford to work with a one-to-one coach and people who wanted to go to a big box gym and do classes. And we
Yeah.
wanted to make sure we could find something that was more flexible, more affordable, but just as results driven as a one-to-one experience and gives people the opportunity. More so parents who are at that stage where their kids are getting a little bit older. They're more they're in a job that is more senior, so it allows them to be able to have some more disposable income to be able to afford the investment of working with us. And we've built out this 90-day program that really allows someone to go from never having even stepped foot in a gym before to becoming someone who's actually enjoying going to the gym. And that's hard to believe for a lot of people, but with the right environment, the right community, and the right structure of a plan, we've seen some insane results here.
That's amazing. I mean, you can take a lot of parallels there with property. I think in that it can seem very overwhelming for somebody on their own to go out and buy an investment property. Whereas if you're in a community, like-minded individuals, it just becomes so much easier and it's much more engaging and yeah, and you can take inspiration of other people. So do you see lots of parallels there? And yeah, let's take you back to the property side then. So so you started off in sports, professional sports, and then moved into business. So was property something you always wanted to, or was property kind of the next step for you? How did property fit to your plan?
So before football, property was everything that was spoken about at the dinner table, at family
Right.
events, because grandparents, my granddad was very successful with property and still is. My parents are heavily involved with property. So it was kind of like the next transition for me anyway. It was on my mind. It was like, how can I build a business that's profitable enough that I can take that money and put it into something that continues to grow for me? In hindsight, I probably invested a bit too early, and again, I guess we can come on to that. But yeah, for me, it was about being able to create something that worked for me and not just being reliant on one source of income, which was the gym at the time. And
Yeah.
if I was to go on holiday for 2 weeks, then I wouldn't get paid, or if I was to be sick or what have you, then there would be no gym that's open and my clients wouldn't be able to come in and actually train. So my philosophy was, how can I build a property empire that's big enough that I don't need to work? That was my mentality at 21, 22. And then as I've matured a little bit more now, my mindset's a lot different with property, where it's still looking at it from the perspective of growing it, but actually, where can I put that money so that my personal income can grow, so I can actually have more leverage to put into more property? Which why my portfolio actually stopped growing at about 2 years ago. I haven't invested in anything just purely because I've been trying to deploy all the money I've been generating from the businesses back into the businesses rather than taking it out and putting it into property.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. So was there anything that kind of sparked off? You mentioned family, but
Mm.
any particular books or particular person that's done something? Anything that kind of I'm always interested to see where the spark.
Yeah, well,
I can
definitely,
trace my
definitely
one back.
family. So I struggled severely with dyslexia back at school. So I had never read a book. And it was only until the pandemic happened and there was this book, the one book that I bought, I'd never read, sat on my bookshelf for 2 years, collecting dust. And I was like, you know what? I've got a bit more time. When I read this, and it was a book called Man Up by a guy called Bedros Koulian. He's a gym owner, being very successful in the business world. And I read it from cover to cover and I was like, oh, I can actually read a book. And I learned a lot. And there was a lot of things that I implemented from it. As you can imagine, the book Man Up, it was about kind of dropping the narrative of things that you were told back at school and growing into the next version of you and shedding your skin. And then I got into a bit of Grant Cardone. So got into, I think it was the 10X Rule and Sell or Be Sold, more salesy books. And then Rich Dad Poor Dad, which I'm sure most of your audience has listened to or read that. And then yeah, it was kind of an opportunity where I had enough money where I thought, what can I, with this pool of money that I've got, what could I buy? And at the time, all I could stretch to was where I wanted to buy, which was around me. I said to myself, I want to buy where I know. And I literally bought 5 minutes down the road from where I am in Croydon. And I couldn't stretch quite to a one-bedroom flat. I had enough money for a studio. And I remember saying to my dad, like, I think I found a really good property I could turn into a one-bedroom. And he was like, all right, I'll come and have a look at it. And then came and had a look, saw the studio, and he was like, oh, it's going to be tough. But he said, if you get a studio, the problem is you're going to have a big turnover of tenants, and it's also going to be a pain in your ass. And I still went and bought it anyway. 5 years later and five tenants later, I,
Yeah.
he was
Is that
right.
right?
Yeah, he was right. He was right. But it was a big lesson for me because it allowed me to still go ahead. It still did very well. It was just a bit of a pain in the ass where every year I had to get stuck back in, find another tenant, get somebody in. But you know what? It's generated some great cash flow for me. It's also increased quite significantly in value, and taking it from a studio to a one bedroom, which we've just done, has added about 50 grand on top of the sale price, which we're looking to now refinance in November to be able to pull some money out and redeploy into other areas. So yeah, I guess coming from a background, listening to family was number one, but then also getting into some more books and understanding a bit more of the philosophy of investing and the psychology of money was another book that I
Yeah.
read. So yeah, what about you? How did you get into property? Like, what sparked your interest to go, this could be a good route?
Yeah, no, way back, it was again just like natural, hearing people talk about property, and there was just something about property. I don't know, I can't really even pin it down. It was just kind of in the national kind of psyche, isn't it? When you talk about property, but
Mm,
I mean, I really had to take it right back. It would be Rich Dad Poor Dad, but specifically, I think it was his second one called "Increase Your Financial IQ," which kind of because I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, I got it and I understood it, but it was all it was the way he wrote it was very kind of lots and lots and lots of stories, which is fine. But I like something a bit more kind of matter of fact.
tactical. Yeah,
Yeah, and the for
yeah.
the increasing financial Q kind of really boiled it down to the real nuts and bolts of what works and what he did. How
Mm,
much of his story's true, I don't know, but it was I think the diagram in that book where it shows the flow of money. Where he calls it, the poor and the rich, and the diagram, the money flows straight out
mhm,
of the poor person's mindset, and then the rich, it's into assets, and then money from the assets. That is stuck in my head. And at the time, I just finished university, and I was living in this house in university where supposed to be studying, but obviously just mainly partying the whole time. It's what university's for. Um, but at the time, I remember doing the maths on the house I was living in, the student house. This landlord was making like serious coin here out of this house. The house was a pretty unpleasant house, that we lived in, not like today's standards. But I remember doing maths and then thinking, yeah, it's great, I should do that. And then life gets in the way. I go off and think, I need to go and get a job and do all that, which is what I did. And then I reread Increase Your Financial IQ a few years later, and then it stuck. It was like, right, I'm going to do that.
Isn't it funny with books, by the way, how you can find it at a different time in your life, reread it, and take different things from it? It just was you weren't ready to accept it yet?
Yeah, wasn't ready. And then it started, was ready. And I ended up going back to the area where I used to live as a student and ended up buying student houses there and doing like much better versions of the ones. It was kind of a thing in my head. I have to go and fix that. I have to go and do that thing. So, it was definitely that sparked the journey. And then I've kind of kept myself going. Mainly, I really like biographies. I like hearing how people have actually done things,
Yeah,
whether it's business or property, whatever. It's just how did you actually do it? What was your thought process? What was your strategies that you undertook to get where you want to go? And we talked about this actually with Sarah on a recent podcast. One of my favorite ones I revisited quite recently was Duncan Bannatyne's book, where he talks about how he went from basically being a dropout to starting an ice cream business and then going from that into care homes and that into gyms. And it's really he boils it down to, look, I just saw an opportunity, but then I backed myself and I invested in it and I went for it.
mm,
And anyone can do that. Not everyone will, but basically his take is that anyone can if you understand it. So for me, it was about really understanding the nuts and bolts of how to do this thing and then do it and get all the excuses out of the way of time, money, whatever else it is, and just bat them away, find a
yeah,
way around those kind of problems. So
mm,
yeah, it's our experience when I say ours, Caroline and I, we very much did it together, and that's where we, have gone from doing buy to lets to now doing boutique hotels. It's all just following a plan and a path,
yeah,
but actually just doing it. You know,
yeah. Yeah.
And that's why a lot of people fall down. A lot of people talk about property, but don't actually do anything.
Mm.
That's the difference, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's also, it can feel quite overwhelming for somebody, especially if they don't have that kind of money to be able to deploy into a property. It's like that's never going to happen. But if you just switch the mindset, and there's so many different creative ways now you can find financing that could work for you if you don't have a business that gives you the ability to earn an income to go and put into a property. Um, so yeah, I think it starts with a mindset. That's a good point that you made there. It's definitely how can we make this work rather than that's never going to be me.
I think there's many people that fall into trap. Oh, I couldn't do that, or that yeah, that can never be me. But you're right. If you start with I start with why if someone else can do it, why can't I do it? What's different about them? That means they can do it and I can't do it. Now, sometimes if there's something very niche, they might have a particular skill set that I don't have. I'm reading, you're aware of Gary Stevenson. You heard of Gary Stevenson and the ex-trader is my big thing at the moment, talking about social inequality. He was a maths genius and became a very successful trader. Now, that's a skill set I don't have. So I can't follow that path. But there's always something I can take out of different books that, or
Yeah.
different people's experience that I can apply to my own skill set. So for people, I think that is the key thing. It's like find something that is your skill set and make something out of that. Yeah, which
Mm.
is exactly what you have done. You've taken your mindset and your skill set and created a business that then can flow into property.
For me, it sounds so simple, and I hate to just say that books helped me with that. But like you just said, the book that you're currently reading isn't really relative to the industry that you're in, but it's the principles inside of that book where you go, that was cool. And the stories of people who have done it, like a Richard Branson, for example, listening to what he did, you go, he's just a normal guy, and
Yeah.
I just took action.
Yeah.
Just was like, you know what, I'm not scared of failing,
Yeah.
and oftentimes that's half the battle. But then having the right education to back it up, because I can definitely tell you, with the money I've invested in myself over the past 2 years compared to what I did the 5 years prior in business, I've accelerated so much more. So I think it's getting started, but then getting the right people around you, mentors, courses, to actually accelerate that growth so that you don't make the same mistakes. You can overcome them much quicker, which is what I did. I waited too long to do that. I should have done it sooner.
Oh, we all wish we'd done it sooner. Don't worry. I always think, I wish I started 10 years. Well, you got plenty of time.
Yeah.
Um, but no, it's interesting you say that because I think experience of mine, I think, look, you're going to pay for your education in property one way or the other. Right? You either go try and do it on your own and you'll make a mistake that's going to cost you, or you go and find someone who's done it and teaches you how to not make that mistake.
Yeah.
You're going to need to pay for that. But, I would wager that you'll save a lot more doing it that way than making your own mistakes. Because I've been there, made mistakes. That's cost, you know. I said, as you've just said, find someone that's doing it, find someone that can help you. There's plenty of people out there that will help and mentor and coach and keep you on the right path.
Yeah. My favorite quote at the moment, actually, Nick, is model then modify. It's kind of similar to how I see your journey. Like you've probably modeled somebody, but then modified into the different space in the property world because there's a different door that's opened that's allowed you to go, that's different. Maybe we could do this. So model until you've got the model right, and then modify it once you've nailed it.
Yeah, it's exactly what we did. Nothing that we've done in property has been anything new.
Mm.
Yeah, from straight buy to lets to following a system, buying under value, renovating, refinancing. Somebody else did that before. We just copied that. The HMO strategy that I did, I'd seen that somewhere else and just relocated it to my investment area in Birmingham and modified, and then modified it again when I did it in Liverpool. And the hotel one, I took out of a magazine. I saw somebody doing kind of, turning B&Bs into boutique hotels and automating them. And I was like, that sounds good. I like that. I get that. Take that and take the action and then, and as you say, modify. So yeah, love that one. Where'd you get that one from? I recognize it from somewhere.
You
All
know
right.
what? I'm not too sure. I've heard it recently.
Yeah.
I use my TikTok. I don't use TikTok to post. I use it to, believe it or not, I was very against TikTok, but now, interestingly, I've figured out a way to hack the algorithm to show me stuff that I want to learn, and AI being one of those.
Okay.
So this is a tip for anyone, by the way. Go into the search bar on a topic that you want to discover. This could be even in property, like how to source financing for a buy-to-let property. Type that in, and then any posts that you go on and watch the video of, just type in the comment FYP, for you page, and it will teach your algorithm to post more stuff into your homepage of that content. So for me, mine is filled up with, because one of the things I'm looking at the moment is investment, and the other thing is AI. So it's that the AI stuff is absolutely brilliant if you're looking to automate certain things and just
Very
be a
much.
bit more diligent with time and even just refine certain processes inside of a business. But go TikTok, I'm using at the moment for education. It's probably how it was designed in China originally, I think, for kids as an
Right.
educational platform, like short bursts of content. But then when
Yeah.
they brought it over here, the rumor goes that they were trying to dumb down the Western mind. So yeah,
Yeah. I've never had that on TikTok, so that's great. That's a great tip for everyone. Listen, I have TikTok. I don't really use it just because every time I go on it, it's like just stuff that is just totally irrelevant to me. But
yeah.
I think it's
Try
like,
that. Honestly, but again, come back to mindset. When I shifted that mindset to what like watching stuff for education, game changer. It was really good. 'Cause especially a 2-minute burst of content, you're like, I can get like it's easy to consume.
yeah. So it's FYP for you page, and you put that.
Yeah, so if there's a post that you like, i.e., if it's around, like for example, we're trying to at the moment bring in a person who can set calls on using ChatGPT and bring that into our systems so that they set calls for our closers for our onboarding team. So I've been learning a lot more about that. But as soon as there's a post I like that was really relative to the pain point that I had, I just typed in the comment FYP, and it just everything that is based around that post and that they think that you will like more of, they bring to your page. So yeah.
Brilliant. Love that one. Great tip. Talking of AI, yeah, I'm trying to use that a lot more. I reckon today or the last 2 days, I reckon I've saved £10,000 worth of legal bills by using ChatGPT to create draft documents for me.
So what are you doing that for? Is it agreements with tenants, or is it around like, some of the legal side of things? Obviously, with what you're currently doing in the projects.
Yeah, it's a commercial contract issue I'm having. That a commercial contract lawyer would charge me a lot of money
Yeah.
to create letters and documents. I've done it on ChatGPT. I've double checked it all, make sure that it is a couple of it's not 100%. So you have to tweak a few things here and there, but I reckon it's saving at least 10 grand's worth of legal bills.
Wow. Yeah, it's the way the world's going, and it's just the start. It's just the start, I think, for sure.
Yeah, love it. I wanted to get onto fitness side because obviously it's a big part of yours and actually mine kind of journey now. So fitness and entrepreneurship, I
Yeah.
think they're intrinsically linked. I really do. I think the fitter and health in mind and body means you can be a better operational entrepreneur. What are your thoughts?
1,000,000%. Like one of my fundamental rules, like one of my non-negotiables on a daily basis, is do something every day. Sweat every day is the term I use to kind of get the brain in rhythm. I don't know how you feel when you train, but I'm just a lot more alert, switched on, like feeling excited about opportunity. I'm quicker with making decisions. So depending on how your brain is wired and the way you're training, I think it can be massively productive to what you do on a daily basis, but also with a sense of confidence. I think with investing and in business, like confidence is if you can unlock an extra 10% of confidence, which is the minimal amount that you're gonna increase by just being in better shape. And even if you're not in great shape yet, but you're just exercising, it's going to give you that aura of, yeah, do you know what? I can make this work. And there'll be opportunities that will arise where you'll be like, you know what? I can do this because you'll have that confidence in yourself. And I always say to clients, like confidence comes after you've done the thing. So it doesn't come before. You're never confident before doing something. It's always like when you went into the boutique hotels, I bet you were not very confident before, but now you've done it. You're like, oh yeah, I can do this. Like whatever I set my mind to, I can do. So I think a half an hour to 45-minute workout a day can give you that same feeling, that same release of dopamine where you go, you know what, I really didn't feel like training today, but I went and done half an hour, I ticked over and I feel great. I feel good. You're never going to feel crap walking out of the gym. So yeah, for me, training is a fundamental. And I always say belt buckles and bank accounts. That's my motto, which is be in great shape, but also focus on the bank account side of things. And when I saw you, actually, I was doing a talk on the success quadrant, which is all about time, relationships, health, and money, and having all those four things multi-dimensional success, which is what I call it, so that you're not just focusing on one dimensional, which is money. Because I've been there where it's like grow the business, grow the business, grow the business, grow the business, and ultimately my self-confidence and my ability to be confident in who I am decreases. So I might have all these investments and a certain amount of money in the bank account, but if I don't look good for it, what's the point? You know. So I think coming back to the mindset thing, it's a shift in mindset as to looking at a property as a return on investment. When you put a certain amount of money in, what's that going to give me back? It's the same as when you look at your health. If I put a certain amount of time into this, or if I hire a PT, or if I can delegate my meal prep, what's it going to bring back to me? And you do that for 30 days, you cut the alcohol, you focus on the lean foods, you train 3 times a week, you'll completely evolve and be a different person in 30 days time. And obviously you're living proof of that. 6 years ago you started, did you say, Nick?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I was kind of mid to late 40s when, building a business in property, 2 young kids. Easiest thing in the world to just be like, well, I haven't got time for that, and you know, had a bit of a moment of clarity, went on holiday with a family member who was, started his fitness journey. I was like, what am I doing? Caught a look in the mirror and like, okay, this needs to change. This moment is like I'm kind of over the hill at my age, and it's like how do I want that second half to look like? And I didn't want it to look like I was currently looking. So that's what sparked my fitness journey, if you like. And it was tough to get started. I have to change the mindset of right, okay, this is now a non-negotiable. I love the way you talk about non-negotiable behaviors. For me, that became a non-negotiable of okay, my health is now priority uh,
Yeah.
alongside family and the business. It's not 7, 8 points down the list. It's now top 3. So it was a change of priority, and then it was actually taking the action. So, you know, continuing the property analogies, it was like, well, okay, well, what do I need? If I'm doing anything new, I need to find a mentor. I need someone to show me how to do and give me steps and give me goals, or to rather than give me goals, I was show me how I can achieve those goals by taking certain steps. So
Yeah.
first thing, join the gym, do it, get it done. Right. Next thing, get a PT. I need someone who tells me what to do, shows me the equipment, sets some challenges, gets me moving, and as you say, no matter how tired you are, you can wake up and think, don't feel it today.
Yeah.
I soon learned that those are the days that you have to go, and it doesn't matter even if you do half an hour. But I often found that the first couple of sets would be it's a fight, but actually then you get into it and suddenly you're like actually smashing out more than you would have maybe done, and you come out feeling amazing and think, I'm so glad I went today, and I
Yeah.
could have so easily not gone. It could so easily have just gone, nah, I'm not feeling it today. So for me, that was really, really important to follow the same mindset as my property stuff, which is, take action, find someone to help me, show me, and keep showing up.
Yeah. 100%. You make a good point regarding the just like getting started and doing something, and then that leads into another set or another rep. Well, to this day, I still fight with that. I will, if I need to go on the bike or do some sort of cardio, I'm like, right, I'm just going to do 5 minutes, and then it becomes 10 minutes, and then it becomes 15 minutes, and it's just the initial. You have two sides of, again, a bit like property and business. It's, "Oh, don't do it, it's risky," or "Look at the upside, look at the opportunity." It's the same when you have the two people on the shoulder when it comes to your fitness. Like, "You're gonna look great, you need this, you've got goals here, you need to go to the gym, you need to do your workout." And then you get the other side where it's, "Don't do it, bed's more cozy, like, you can have that cheap meal." So it's the exact same. But you know what? In terms of the people I've seen have the most success, it all starts with the fundamental of training, because once you get the training in place, usually everything else falls in place. Like, a lot of people will say to me, nutrition's not great. That's the bit that's the weak link. Nutrition, that's correct for most people. But once they get the fundamental of training in place and they're consistent with that, usually sleep starts to get better. They start to go to bed a little bit earlier. They're up a bit earlier. They're eating better. They're better hydrated. They're not drinking so much over the weekends. And once you drop some of those vices, before you know it, you'll see the change. And that will usually give you confidence to keep going, because motivation is usually the thing that when somebody joins our gym, they'll say, I'll ask, what's the biggest challenge for you right now? And the response will be motivation. And it's because they've never actually gone to the gym for a period of time where they've seen results. And I actually say it's not their fault, because they've been taught by a gym to sign up to a gym, go and use the equipment and figure out on your own. But without the support, like community, the culture in the gym, where it's like people who want to help you and lift you up and want to see you win. We always say to people that we probably want your results more than you want it. And if you have that around you, and that doesn't need to be at a gym like T2 Fit, this could be just a group of friends. Your friends inspired you to take action. There was something where you looked at him and went, this guy's no different to me. Like, if he can do it, I can do it. So why not? And do you know what? I also think, I hate to bring the time thing into it, but a lot of investors and business owners and people who are very successful will say, I just haven't got the time to do that. But actually, the person who is most free financially is the person who has got the most time, because they're probably not using time correctly. They need to do some sort of time and energy audit where they say, right, what I'm doing here isn't right. They're probably the type, and I did this at the talk at the LIS show. I said, like, talking about AI, and I said, there's certain things that you shouldn't be doing that you're doing right now that you don't even realize is a suck on your time that doesn't bring you any energy or money. And if it doesn't do either of those two things, you'd rather either be spending it with your family or working on your health. So we do have enough time. It's just how we look at time.
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen there's a, s- a speech that Arnold Schwarzenegger did once. And I love his book. If you haven't read his book, Be Useful. It's one of
Yes,
the
it's on
best.
my bookshelf. I haven't
Uh,
read it though.
okay, get the audio. You have to listen to the audio because it's just Arnie doing Arnie. It's brilliant.
You know, I saw him live actually do a talk about a year ago. He's
Yeah.
superb. Really
And he
good.
might have told this story about, he was talking when he was governor of California, he was talking about he had to cut tuition fees or something. And, so it meant that students had to get other jobs to support their way. And one of the students stood up and went, I haven't got time for that. And he basically went through a 24 hours and created like 3 hours in this guy's day when he was doing stuff he shouldn't be doing that he could allocate to working. So yeah, no, I love that. And I would say we get a lot of this in property as well. I say we do property training and we get people to say, "Oh, I haven't got time. I haven't got time to invest." And it's just, you just have to call that out and go, "Look,
Mm,
it's not about how much time you've got. We've all got the same amount of time in a day, right? Um, it's about how you prioritize it. It's where
mm,
do your priorities sit, and you have to be really honest about where they are. For most people, family is number one, brilliant, great. And then, underneath that is what's next, what's under that. And if it isn't health or fitness, if that isn't in the top 3, you've really got to question, well, you need to move that up the list. What's
yeah,
more
yeah,
important, honestly? Is it watching 3 hours of Netflix a day? Or is
yeah,
it, where's your priority? You have to
yeah,
move it up. And as you said, then you have to take action. You have to like force yourself into that action. But the more support you can get around you, the easier that is. And that certainly helped me having a PT that I was accountable to.
yeah,
If I put it in the diary, I'm going.
yeah. You'll do more for other people than you ever do for yourself, and that's so true. Like with people growing businesses, right? They're doing it for themselves in a way, but mostly they're doing it to give their family a better opportunity, right? More experiences, different lifestyle. Maybe it's somewhere you want to move so that your kids can be in a different school. We're not really doing it for ourselves. When we go down to the deep rooted reason, it's usually for other people.
Yeah. I mean, we talk a lot in the property world about vision, having that vision of where you're trying to get to, what you're actually trying to do. And I think it's the same with fitness. You can bring that into it of, just I do a lot of visualization and, think about, I guess 6 years ago when I started on the fitness side was I had a visual of what I kind of wanted to look like when I was hitting 50. Um, it had to have that kind of, and how that and what I was doing, in the vision was not just how I looked, but also how I felt and activities I was doing. So, I visualized being the gym, visualized playing tennis, that's the other stuff I do. So I think that's really important. A lot of people go so far on the business side that they forget or they just deprioritize the health side. As you said earlier, what's the point of having a really successful business and in building wealth if you're not fit enough to enjoy it, or
Yeah,
you hit your midlife, later life, and your health declines.
yeah. What's that quote? Is it someone who's dying has one wish, somebody who's healthy and alive has a million? And it is true. Like when you get that, look at Steve Jobs, for example. Like I think on his deathbed, he said like his his main focus was just to stay alive another day.
Yeah,
Whereas
time.
the time is the most valuable thing that we have, and to create more time, it's about changing lifestyle and looking at actually figuring out it. And also, just to come back to the point of, I know when I'm in the best shape possible, I'm better as a dad, I'm better as a CEO, I'm better as an investor, better for my team. I show up better, I'm more consistent. These are all things that people want, but sometimes we're looking for the cheat code. And I've been there, where you're looking for the easy route or someone to blame, but ultimately it just has to start with you. It's a fundamental leadership quality, which is starting with like, okay, what can I do about this situation? And there's a picture actually I shared at the show, which was me on my laptop in my gym gear, asleep at like 9 p.m. And that's the whole principle of the talk that I gave, which is how to avoid burnout and be in the best shape you can possibly be. So yeah,
Yeah, that's what caught my eye. When I saw you and I came over to chat to you was that the burnout. I think a lot of people suffer burnout, and I know that prioritizing my health has really helped with that. And once you're over the hump of, initially it was like getting to the gym was hard, it hurt,
Yeah.
you knew your PT was going to PT the pace. It was going to be unpleasant for a bit, but you feel great after it. I'm now at the point where I genuinely love going, and if I don't go for a day, I miss it. I really miss it. But if I don't go for more than 3 or 4 days, that drops off a cliff.
Yeah. Do you find that compounds over time when you don't go for a few days, it's suddenly like the habit? What would your typical routine structure look like when you go to the gym? Is it a certain body part that you focus on, or is it a class that you do, or is it working with your coach?
I do. Well, I've had a lot of PT, and I have my PT on and off now. But I use an app called Gravitas, so that I wanted to be able to go into the gym and know exactly what I'm doing, not have to think about what am I doing today. If you walk into the gym going, "What am I doing today?" then you kind of lost it.
Yeah.
So, I use an app called Gravitas, which basically tracks everything you do, and you can set up routines.
Mhm.
So I'll probably mix it between doing like chest and arms one day, shoulders and back another day, legs another day. And legs is hard. I really hate doing that. Everyone does.
Especially when you do it on your own, it's a tough one.
Yeah, and I've had to kind of really build that in and not ignore that bit. Build some core in, and I do play tennis as well from a cardio, do
Brilliant.
that kind of stuff. So, um, and then once I'd got my set routines, then I'd start changing them around and bringing in different exercises and try and use every bit of equipment in the gym and keep it moving. So, but I need that app. I need that something to go in. I'm going in today and I'm doing this, and I'm going to go this. I'm going to tick them
Yeah.
off. You tick it off as you do it. Complete your workout. It tells you if you missed anything. You're only accountable to yourself. And you tracks all your weights and everything, so you can
Yeah.
absolutely track what you do. I love it. It's brilliant.
So it's a good point you make there. I think when you said about going into the gym and not being sure what you're doing, you're almost setting yourself up for failure. It's what we see a lot of our clients do before coming to see us. And what they'll typically do is go and do half an hour on the treadmill, which is actually the thing that most people don't love doing and is the least conducive to them getting their results. Weight training is going to be the number one, no matter what your goals are. But most people are looking to trim up a little bit, build some strength, build some muscle, feel more confident in clothes. Strength training is going to get you there. But always look at when you go into the gym with an intention, like you would do when you go into investing. Like, what am I expecting to get out of this? And always think that random workouts lead to random results. So the whole time it's just winging it, getting some sort of software, even ChatGPT nowadays, type in what your goals are, what your current body weight is, what sex you are, what height you are, where you want to be in the next 3 months. It'll create you a plan. But I'm a big believer in actually communicating to people around you what you're working on.
Yeah.
So whether that's a goal that you have physically or financially, is telling people what you're on and what you're searching for. So I started this year wanting to get to 90 kilos, a bit of a different goal to most. I was trying to gain body weight. I was 84 and I was like, I'm gonna document, I'm gonna post every day for 54 days. And that was the target to get to my 90 kilos. But you know what? Again, coming back to that point I made earlier, doing things for other people, doing more for others and showing up because I'm accountable to them than I would do in private. And I think where most people go wrong is actually keeping their goals to themselves or too close to themselves. The more people you can tell, partners, kids, family members, colleagues, friends, the more people that are going to be chewing at your ear saying, "How you getting on with that goal? How you getting on with that goal?" You won't want to let them down. That's a big hack when it comes down to setting targets and actually achieving them.
Yeah. Once you put it out there, then you better do it.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
thing,
When
so it's good to put it out there, and, yeah, I probably don't do that enough. I mean, I talked with my wife about it, and that I don't kind of put it out. Put it out there. I'm trying to do this, so maybe I should. Yeah.
I'll hold you accountable to that.
Yeah, do that, do that. And so I wanted to get your take on helping people who are maybe not prioritizing health and fitness. They are maybe a property
Mhm.
investor or they're building a business. Can you give anyone like some little tips on how can someone just get started? How can they, you know, find that time, get rid of those excuses around time and getting started? And
Yeah, I think the first thing is depending on where you're spending your time, and I would assume that some of your audience are going to be on things like social media, which is actually one of the first places I would start, which is start to curate your feed in a way that doesn't show things that make you feel down with where you currently are. Try and find people that inspire you. Whether you're a female and you're going through the menopause and you're following a Davina McCall, getting content around you because you know what, people nowadays are a lot more wise as to what's right and what's wrong. We don't necessarily have an information problem; it's an implementation problem where we're not quite sure what to implement. So, firstly, it's getting things around you that are going to inspire you, whether that's your feed or whether that's people that you need to get in and around. So whether that's a friend or a family member who's recently started their journey, reach out to them, tell them what you're thinking about doing and where you're at. And you'll be surprised how many people would be up for jumping on the journey with you, even just in a group chat, whether it's going to the gym. And listen, if you've got the money there, the best investment you can make would be in a coach, would be in a personal trainer, would be having just alone the accountability is enough. You don't even need to be following the right plan. Just the fact you've got someone there checking in with you on a weekly basis. Have you gone to the gym a few times a week? Has your nutrition been on point? Have you followed the plan? Great. You're going to be getting a little bit better every single week. So when it comes down to investing in something, I always say that the transformation for most people who join our gym happens at the transaction. As soon as they invest in the program for the 90 days, they often completely transform before they've even lifted their first weight. And it's because for the first time in a long time, they've actually decided to part ways with money that wouldn't necessarily be what they would put to a commercial gym. It wouldn't be the 50 to £100 a month. It's an investment in themselves where they go, you know what, for the next 90 days, I'm all in. And that's usually where the transformation happens mentally. So I would say if you've got the money, invest it. And even if you feel like you don't have the money, a bit like a course, I would actually advise people, even if they don't have the money, figure out a way to just do it for a period of time that you're comfortable with. Whether it's £1,000, £5,000, whatever is comfortable enough for you to go, you know what? I know there's going to be massive upside on the other end of this. Because what's it costing people for not being in shape? What's it going to cost you to not wake up in the morning with a spring in your step, to even just have an extra hour a day of productivity instead of burning out at 2 p.m. and having to grab 3 cups of coffee to get you to 5 o'clock and it's just unproductive time? I think it's really important that there's so much that I could cover on that. The other thing I would touch on is from a nutrition standpoint, is focus on, there's the likes of Andrew Huberman, Gary Brecker. There's a lot of stuff out there that is a lot more simplified nowadays. I know there's a lot that can also feel quite overwhelming. Like, do I need to be having ice baths every day and saunas? Just focus on three pillars. We like to focus on mindset, body, and lifestyle. So mindset being trying to think about your journey differently. And you mentioned about visualization is thinking about where you're going to be in 90 days to 365 days. Body, it's lifting consistently 3 to 4 times a week. And then lifestyle, it's really trying to crack down on habits and focus on what you're doing when it comes to you getting at home, because that's usually when you start eating later at night, you grab a takeaway because you're short on time. But ultimately, I know what it's like when I'm tired and I come back home, the last thing I want to do is prep. So it's just auditing everything you do and saying, you know what, can I start to think about outsourcing my lunch times because I'm actually rubbish at bringing food. So I'm then going and grabbing something quick and easy. Or is it nighttime when you got the kids? I'm having two girls now under 3. I know how hard it is when you get home. And by the time you've done bedtime, it could be 8 o'clock, 8:30. The
Yeah.
last thing you want to do is start making food. So how can you set yourself up for success? Sounds easy for me to say it, but it's really thinking about, okay, what can I do to make sure that I actually make life easy once I've done the hardest part of my day, which is usually get the kids sorted. For me, it's like bedtime is a nightmare.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've been there, and yeah, as I said, it's just so easy to make excuses. I haven't got time. I've got to do this, but it's not. Anyone can make an excuse about anything. It's just deciding, is this a priority? If it is, then you'll find a way, and with help,
Yeah,
and you can, just start, as you say, making those little lifestyle tweaks, and each one you do makes you feel a bit better, so you do a bit more of them. And that's what I found for me was the start was going to the gym. I knew my nutrition wasn't great, so but the better I felt going and doing exercise, the more I wanted my nutrition to be better.
yeah.
So it gradually just started changing, and I was drinking less and I was eating better and felt better. So you get up in the morning, you feel like going to gym more, so you go, and it's just a positively reinforcing cycle.
100%. One of the first places I'd also start, Nick, and I think with a lot of people that I'm around who are in the space of wanting to get in shape, but don't really feel like they know where to start, is actually just, and this sounds crazy, but just going to bed a bit earlier and cutting out the alcohol in the week. Because what I think happens is what I just explained there with putting the kids down, or maybe even you're at the stage where the kids have moved on and you're using that time unwisely, where you're maybe grabbing a couple of glasses of wine, which then leads into you going to bed at 11, 12 o'clock, waking up at 8 a.m., bit foggy, and actually just starting with sleep would completely change your whole mindset around fitness. Going to bed consistently at the same time and waking up in the morning at the same time. And usually my best advice to somebody who's got a crazy day is start first thing in the morning with a workout, because then nothing can come up. Once you've done that, you've done your hardest part of the day. The rest of the day should be a bit more of a breeze. But I just read Discipline is Destiny. Definitely recommend anybody out there who's looking to increase their discipline and become a more disciplined individual. It's by Ryan Holiday, which I'm sure many people who are into their books know about him. And he spoke about in this book, the problem with most people is that they haven't got the discipline to go to bed early enough, which is why most people say that they're not morning people, because they're actually just not going to bed on time.
Yeah.
And it's a very good statement, because I've never thought about it that way. But I'm like, a lot of people say, I'm not a morning person, but it's probably because they're going to bed too late. So yeah, this is where I'd probably start if you're looking to kickstart a journey. Is
Yeah.
again, curate what you're listening to, what you're watching, what you're reading, and then going to bed early. That's going to be a game changer. Sounds so simple, but it's
It
free.
does.
And you can do it.
A lot of these things are, but it's just,
Mm.
how willing are people to do it? And I think people talk a lot about motivation. I think, motivation comes from within. You can't outsource your motivation
Mm-hmm.
to somebody else. No one else can motivate someone to do something. You have to find that from within. And I like to change motivation for discipline, because it mostly is about discipline. That's why I love that book. And I'll look that up, uh, put that on my list, because I haven't read that. But discipline is, if you boil it down, it's like, doing the thing that's maybe hard that your future self is going to thank you for. And that, as soon as you get older, when you get to kind of my age, for example, I think about, you see something. I had the music channel on the other night, and it was like 1995 music, and that's like when I was 20, it was 1995, and that's gone like that.
Yeah.
I fast forward 30 years from now, I'm in my 80s, and it's like, whoa, hang on a minute. I need to be doing stuff now so that when I get to that age, I'd still feel good. I can still do things. And there's a whole other subject we can talk about. And I'm already thinking that, we're going to get you back to talk more. I feel, like I could talk about this all day. I'm listening to a lot of stuff from Peter Attia, if you know him, but it's all about longevity.
Okay.
He talks about health span rather than lifespan. So, being healthy for longer, and what your metrics are as you age. He talks about, measuring your VO2 max, and he talks about measuring things like grip strength, and, and what kind of metrics you should be hitting as you get older, so you can live a longer, healthier life. So that's a whole nother kind of subject that we can maybe get onto another time. But
Yep.
uh,
100%.
so much as you can get into. I just think it's so important, for anyone, full stop. But, particularly if you are in business, you are busy, and you are building a property business, it's so easy to neglect
Hmm.
the whole side of things. And, I think, as Luke, you've shown that actually don't need to make like huge changes. You just need to prioritize it differently, and build in little things, and start building a head of steam with it, and you can
Yeah.
get to a much better place.
Yeah. 100%. And honestly, if anyone listening to this wants to get in shape, is have a real honest conversation with yourself. You're like, what vices do I have? Because we actually all know the answer. I shouldn't be eating that late at night. I shouldn't be eating that cereal in the morning. We're like I said earlier, we're all actually a lot more educated than we were 10 years ago. Most people nowadays, when they come and join the gym, already know what they want.
Yeah.
Whereas 10 years ago, I'd have to say to people, look, we're not going to do that because this is actually the best thing for you. Nowadays, people come and go, I need this. So I do think we've all evolved a lot more, and where there's podcasts and things like what you're doing and what others are doing in the health space. It makes it a lot more accessible for people to get the best kind of content for free at the drop of a button, on the way to work, on the train, at home. You can watch this stuff. It's just then about backing it up with having something there that's going to allow you to get to that result, rather than just feeding your mind with it. It's taking action. My quote of the year is default to action. Whenever I don't feel like doing something, I just default to action. Just do the thing. And kind of full circle there, what you mentioned about the beginning with your journey, and just taking action on it. So
I love it. Brilliant. Well, Luke, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. How do people get hold of you if they want to talk to you and
yeah.
connect with you? How do they do that?
So website for T2Fit is t2fit.co.uk. You can follow me personally as well, Luke Turner _official on Instagram. It's probably the best place to find me. And we also give away a habits tracker, which kind of gives away the 5 fundamentals that a lot of our best clients put in place when it comes down to daily habits. So anyone can DM me the word habits, and I can send that over to them as well.
Fantastic. Thanks. I'll put those links into the show notes. But yeah, and in the meantime, Luke, it's been a pleasure having you on. We'll certainly connect, and I'd love to have you, more involved with this property life if we can going forward. I think that's a really important aspect of what we do, is your health and fitness. I'm big into that, so it's a really important thing for me. So brilliant.
Well,
Thanks
thanks
for
for the
coming
opportunity,
on.
Nick.
Lovely to
Really
talk to
appreciate
you.
it.
And we'll talk again soon, I'm sure. Take care.
Yeah, 100%. Thanks, mate.
Cheers.